What was your worst sleepover experience during your childhood? Had my first ever sleepover with my best friend in the first grade. Things at night were awesome. When I woke up the next morning, everyone at his house was super distant, and they called my mom to get rid of my mishap. His father had an aneurysm that night and passed away. After everything settled, he and his mom moved away, and I never saw them again. I went on a business trip once and had to share a room with a guy I barely knew. His mother had a heart attack and died, and he got the call around 1 AM. It was very awkward and very sad. That's so sad for your colleague, but also WTF you had to share a room with a near stranger on a business trip. I was invited to a birthday party in elementary. Everybody kept talking about the slumber party afterwards. I assumed I was also invited to the slumber party, so I brought my sleeping bag and pajamas. Turns out, nobody actually wanted me there. I cried in the host's room alone for an hour or so, then faked being sick, and had my grandma come pick me up. I really hate when the mom will allow 10 to the party, but only allows 4 for the sleepover, and doesn't really clarify it to anyone. Leaves people feeling left out and betrayed. I had a friend that handled this really well when I was a kid. Sleepover people would show up half an hour early and put our overpass bags in the closet so no one else saw them. Then the mum would tell the other kids that we were going to be dropped home last because our parents were too busy to pick us up. Naturally, once everyone else left, we just didn't get dropped home, and no one was feeling left out. Friends decided to set up a mock game of Survivor based on the reality show, which turned out to be an excuse to vote out the friend nobody likes first. Guess who was the friend nobody liked? My parents sent me to spend the night with my friend. When I got home the next day, my mom told me my dad moved out and they were getting a divorce. I didn't see my dad for 3 years. How was the sleepover though? Like asking Mrs. Lincoln how the play was. My friend had a poster of the live action Cat in the Hat in her room, and the thing scared me so bad at night that I couldn't fall asleep, and I just sat there on the floor the whole night. I'll get you, and I'll make it look like a bloody accident. Freaky ass cat, 2003. You're not just wrong, you're stupid. Also freaky ass cat, 2003. In a carpool from soccer practice with a teammate/classmate with whom I shared a lot of mutual friends, her mom casually mentioned her upcoming birthday party. The girl angrily shouted at her mom and in front of other girls in the car, "Thanks for bringing it up, mom. Now I have to invite me. I'm young, so when I got the invite, my mom makes me go." I don't remember too much about the party, except for when someone decided all us girls were going to relocate our sleeping bags from the basement to the upstairs living room to watch a movie. The birthday girl went down to grab everyone's sleeping bags. When she brought them all up and everyone was snuggled in, mine wasn't there. I went downstairs into the basement, and she had purposely left only mine down there. I have a young daughter, and of all the ones I've read, this one got me. I hope she never has to experience something like that. I'm sorry you did. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I'm very worried about her social life. She is the sweetest, most naive kid, and she's starting to be the age where other kids realize they can take advantage of that. And the friend drama is already starting at school. As someone who did not have a good time socially from 3rd grade through college, I'm concerned. Friend's mother and her boyfriend were arguing in the kitchen. After we went to bed, he started talking about how he would kill the kids if I have to. I was about 7 or 8, I guess, so it didn't really sink in that much at the time, but my friend wasn't really in a great mood for the rest of the time I was there. When my depressed mother had one of her episodes, she could lash out and scream she should kill us, herself, and me and my siblings, and for some weird reason I can't recall being scared or embarrassed or so. I was just hella annoyed when that happened. My mother has a really loud organ and almost the whole village could hear her. I was mostly outside when that happened. Oof. I'm 42 now and just realize it's a memory I don't like. Oh dear god. I read organ as orgasm at first and was like, WTF. The entire village could hear that. Did she moan into a bullhorn or something? Not me, but my sister. She was a sleepwalker. She was about 7. Slept over at a friend's house, sleepwalked, woke up in an enclosed space, panicked, pushed her arms straight out in front of her against what she thought was a wall in front of her. She had ended up behind a 7-foot tall bureau that was placed diagonally in the corner of the dining room. She pushed it over. It was full of plates, glasses, fine china, etc. It was 4 AM. That's when you frickin' jam back to bed and act completely surprised. Oh no, that thing fell over. I'm pretty pale. I sat up during a sleepover with a bunch of girls and made one of them scream because she saw me in a mirror and thought I was a ghost. My uncle used to say I looked like someone starved a virgin to death. And my aunt used to call me glasshole. Went to a friend's birthday party in 4th grade. About halfway through the night we decided to play hide and seek. Maybe 30-45 minutes later, all I know was it was a long ass time. I come out of my hiding place to find them playing on the Wii in the living room. They'd forgotten about me and thought everyone was found, so they moved on to the next thing without me. This happened to me once. I was hiding between two parts of a sort of modular couch that they had in their basement. I had put a blanket and some pillows over the top of the crack between them so it looked flush with the rest of the couch. I had a single crack of light which I used to look at my watch. Something like an hour passed with me crumpled up between the couch. Eventually, they forgot about me, started playing Wii, funnily enough, while sitting on the exact couch I was at. Maybe an hour had gone by at this point, since I hid myself. A little while longer, and then someone mentions, hey, did Johnny Swanee go home? They agreed that no, I hadn't gone home, and that I had been gone since they started hide and seek. They started looking for me. They looked everywhere, except, of course, the couch they were sitting at the whole time beforehand. Another half hour might have passed. No sign of me. Keep in mind, I'm writhing in pain from the uncomfortable position I'm in. Quite literally crumpled between two pieces of furniture on a cold, concrete floor, for well over an hour. Everything is hurting at this point. Once people start talking about leaving, I carefully emerge from my hiding spot without being seen and just sort of reintegrate myself with the group. They notice me and are pretty surprised. They commended my determination and we played more Wii sports. Funny part is I was in high school. Yeah, it felt bad to be forgotten for a little while, but it only made it so much better to be crowned the champion of hide and seek at the age of 16. I remember at my best friend's birthday party we decided to play hide and seek after a crazy water balloon fight. I was 5'1" and at most 95 pounds, so hide and seek was kind of my jam. I decided to hide in the hamper they had kept the water balloons in. It was a skinny hamper with holes on the side and the empty trash bag that once held the water balloons was flowing in the wind. I fit myself snugly inside and someone helped tie the trash bag back to the top before the count was over. Everyone was found pretty quickly. I thought for sure I'd be found right away since there were holes on the sides of the hamper that was clearly not empty, but no. It took what felt like ages after everyone was found and me scrunched up in a ball in a skinny hamper feeling the wind threatening to blow me over before they finally found me. The seeker walked past me so many times I tried so hard not to laugh. Someone joked that maybe I went home while everyone was hiding as a joke. The only one who knew where I was the guy who tied the bag to the top and he wasn't saying anything. At one point I considered knocking myself sideways if a big gust of wind blew at me, just for the sake of realism, but I was too scared of it hurting so I didn't. Finally, after what felt like an hour, I was found and crowned the hide and seek champion of the party. We were 13, I would guess. Normally I would always stay at my friend's place, but this time we stayed at mine. My parents took us to the bar, which was something people did at the time. Well, my father decided to get blackout wasted and us two 13-year-olds were stuck in a bar from 8 PM until 1 AM. It was getting pretty uncomfortable between the parents and even some of the other people in the bar, cause well kinda shitty to have a couple of 13-year-olds in a bar on a Friday night at 1 AM. So when my father got up to use the bathroom, my mom grabbed us and we ran out to the van. He came out screaming through a drink and was banging on the van screaming all sorts of obscenities. Well, we get home, get some dinner finally, and my mom goes to bed. My friend and I decide to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit in the living room, which I never got to use, but hey, dad is gone. Well, an hour later he shows up and he just sits on the couch and smokes pot until falling asleep an hour later. So we sneak off to my room and my friend's parents picked us up to stay at his place. And that was the last time I ever had a friend over. Condolences. When I slept at a friend's I went for a crap and blocked the toilet. His poor dad had to put on some rubber gloves and break up my monster turd. I felt so ashamed about it. That'll teach em to keep a poop knife handy. I see your poop knife and raise you a poop clothes hanger. My brother used to clog his toilet all the time. Mom made him start breaking it up with a metal clothes hanger before flushing. So I was 11 and a quiet kid. I'd not yet come into my own, so my social skills were a bit weak and I was overly shy with people I didn't know. This led to me only really making 1 or 2 close friends during my first year at comprehensive/high school. One of these friends happened to have the same name as me, so we bonded pretty quickly due to teachers mixing us up a lot, etc. Anyway, we were becoming good friends. He invited me for a sleepover a few months later, and I agreed. I went over his place and we wandered around his town, got some snacks, bumped into a couple of other kids from our class. It was cool. Back at his place in the night, he declared that we were gonna play a game of truth or dare. I mean, I'm 11 and a pretty innocent, sheltered kid. So to me, that was as innocent as playing tag. So I agreed. The rules were simple. Here are 6 pieces of paper each. Write 3 dares and 3 truth questions. Scrunch them up and chuck them in a jar. We'd then take turns to pull them out and answer to them. Sounds fun. Let's go. I pull out the first piece. It's one of my own, and it reads, who do you fancy in our year? Mild. Look, I was an innocent kid, so this was the pinnacle of my gossip imagination. I told him, and that was that. His turn. He pulls out a piece, rolls his eyes, and says nonchalantly, I knew I'd get this one. He drops the paper down, so I can read it. It's one of his own. It reads, shove pen up her ass. Time stood still for that moment. I didn't have a clue how to process it of all the possibilities. He chose shoving a pen up one's asshole as one of 3 dares. At the age of 11, I was still processing the paper with a little frown and a tilt of my innocent head when I was about to have some brand new freaking information to process. Before I could react, he stood up, grabbed the pen we'd used to write the dares, bent forward and just stuffed it on back there. He pulled a little face as he did it, but it just went straight in. We held some pretty awkward eye contact, him in a state of complete comfort, me in a state of borderline breakdown, before he casually pulled it back out with a subtle pop. He looked at the pen, and it was missing the lid. I was freaking mortified at seeing this, but he just rolled his eyes again, slipped the pen back up there, and rummaged around until it made a click. Then he pulled it back out complete with its lid, and a nice big clump of crap firmly lodged on top of it. He then opened his attic window, and, with a blank expression, flung the pen off into the woods, like he'd done this a million times before. He then sat down and said, right, your turn. Fast forward to some years later, turns out he was gay and wanted to initiate something with me, to which I didn't reciprocate nor acknowledge at the time. So yeah, dem sleepovers. Oh my god, yeah. Sometimes you don't realize the stories you're harboring until an innocent Reddit post pops up and drags the memories out of you. Went to my friend's house for the first time. She always wanted to come to my house, not the other way around, but never told me why. So I get there, and after the first hour it all goes downhill. The parents had strict rules about eating at the table. Proceed to insult me about my weight. I have always been skinny, but not unhealthy, so, to the point I nearly cried. After that they do 21 questions about my race and family. By the time night comes I found out they basically have a lockdown rule K in their house. We weren't allowed out of her bedroom until morning and I didn't know that. So I got lectured the next morning. And the end finale was I didn't know I'd be forced to attend their church in the morning before I could go home. So that's how I figured out why she always wanted to stay at my house, not the other way around. Bonus. At one point I overheard her parents talking about me when on the phone with her. They called me a few nasty names and slurs for always inviting her to hang out and go places with my family and putting ideas into her head apparently. I will never forget these people. Are you still friends? I'd love an update on her and how she turned out, cause her parents sound toxic as frick. I'm friends with her, yes, but we don't talk about her family or anything. She prefers not to. When I said she left, when she could, I mean it. Like she went full no contact, went to the military, got married, and is in a totally different state. We don't talk as much as we used to, time difference, but I'm happy knowing she is doing way better before. Back before she was always bombarded with whatever her parents could throw on her. Think of the Asian tiger mom thing. Got her always make straight A's, too many activities, no friends, etc. Now she is living a much more simple life, and she is thriving. Using a throwaway for this, because it's so embarrassing. I grew up with a girl a couple of doors down who I considered one of my best friends. When we were maybe 10 or 11, she had a birthday party sleepover, and I was invited along with 6 other girls. We played games, did our hair, watched movies, and sang karaoke. Toward the end of the night she told me, in front of all the other girls, that I couldn't sleep over because she could only have 6 friends there. Something she hadn't mentioned until that point. I was crushed, but I packed up my sleeping bag and all the stuff I'd brought, and prepared to walk home. On my way out I passed another girl who was arriving late to the party with all her sleepover gear in hand. I walked home in the dark, and didn't tell my mother what had happened. I played Monopoly by myself, and pretended everyone else was there with me. My friend never apologized, and I never said anything about it. Are you still pretty young? Because this isn't embarrassing for you. It's embarrassing for that other girl for being a massive idiot. Hopefully you'll get to a point where you realize that. Also, where were the parents? I know 10, but frick, I keep track who is coming and going in the house. You don't just kick a 10-year-old outside. Think it was around grade 3 or 4. I had a best friend with a big house and 2 parents who later divorced a couple years after. I'll say his dad was a huge garage dad. As in the guy had his own brand new fishing boat he cleaned every day in there. All his trophies, life relics, everything was in there. The floor of the garage was nicely carpeted, and legit everything in there was spotless. Anytime I went over, his dad spent most of his waking hours in that garage. My friend, his brother and I somehow got into a water battle with the garden hose / super soakers. I can't really remember how or why it started, but as you can guess, we moved our battle into the garage and left the garden hose running inside. We must have left it running from lunchtime, and his dad didn't come home until 5 or 6. I'll never forget the absolute hysterical screams and wails my friend and his brother made to their mom, who was closing her eyes crying, begging for her to do something, while their dad was dragging them into that garage. The screams and yelling from the dad inside the garage continued for the entire hour it took for my parents to pick me up. They were beaten so bad, I don't think my friend could sit down for a solid week. Who carpets a garage floor? Thank you. I was wondering this myself. My friend's mom had complained about people flushing the toilet in the middle of the night. Small house and I was little, so I thought, okay, just don't flush in the middle of the night. But on a different occasion she complained about kids not flushing the toilet. Okay, don't go to the bathroom when everyone is asleep, check. Neither of these things she said directly to me. I just heard them and didn't want to upset her because, even though I liked my friend a lot, his mom terrified me. She screamed at the kids, stuff like, "My god, you make me want to die." Again, not to me, just her own kids. But she would scream when she was stressed out, regardless of who was nearby. I'm sure you can see where this is going. One night when I was sleeping over, after a late-ish night of playing video games, probably around 9, we were young and had bedtime. I tucked into bed no problem. It takes me a while to fall asleep, especially at other people's houses. After about an hour and the kids have all fallen asleep, I realize I need to take a crap. I consider going to the bathroom, but I don't want to disturb anyone's sleep and get scolded with the flushing of the toilet. I try to fall asleep to no avail. Then I consider going to the toilet and just not flush and hope no one knows it was me. But the mom might be awake and near the door. I'll wait a little longer. I wait. It must be 12 AM now. Surely it's the right time. I heard some footsteps over by the bathroom, so I waited. This went on all night long. I scared myself into holding in an enormous turd for the entire night until morning around 6 AM. Dropping that juice after the insomnia hell it induced was both divine and harrowing. Never told anyone, just held that crap all night and people just assumed I woke up early and was tired from that later in the day. Can't say a proper sleepover, but I was on a night camping trek with all strangers and had no tent of my own. It was a out of nowhere trek, so I rushed in. A guy from the group realized I don't have place to sleep, so he asked me to join him. A proper 3 people tent he had. It was a cold night we had a conversation, and I thought he is a nice dude. Except when he started farting, and I had no blanket to cover myself from cold. It was a terrible experience. I felt like I was held captive in a fart chamber. A torture trek. Had to climb one of the highest mountain next morning. How you go camping and not bring a tent or sleeping bag? Buckle up cause this one's worth it. When I was 8, I got invited to a sleepover birthday at a friend's house. This was June. We were like 10 girls there. Everything went amazing. But the next day, the birthday girl's mom decided to take us to a pool that only apartment owners of a building had access to. Okay, so I'm really pale, whereas all of the other girls were lightly or really tanned, which is normal in Spain. So when we got to the pool, the mom lined us all up and gave us a squirt of SPF 30 sunblock, which is obviously not enough for me. We didn't receive any more sunblock. When I got home, my shoulders were on fire. I thought it was just a regular sunburn, but I ended up spending all of that summer wearing tank tops and developing blisters and damaged skin, and to this day I cannot receive more than the minimum sun on my shoulders. Moral of the story, use sunblock and never let the mom of a tan girl take care of pale skin.